excited to dress up for this one with my tank top. It's actually more of a dressing down. But I'm Aaron. I have 41 days off of Kratom. I have 6 years and like a month off of alcohol. I was able to quit and time my Kratom quit right around that 6-year date for alcohol, which was really cool. But I was only able to do that because of this community. So I'm really thankful for that. Super thankful to be able to talk with you guys. It's gonna be kind of uncomfortable to talk about some of it because for me, a lot of what drove my use, I've discovered. And what I had to learn about myself through recovery was that a lot of it was driven by things in the past. And things that are like hard to talk about and uncomfortable and could be triggering for people. But it's totally worth it if it helps even one person maybe move the dial forward a little bit on their journey to quitting Kratom. So, if you're on it and you're trying to get off, I mean, there's so many people here who are able, willing, and just like over the moon to support you. And it's such a nefarious kind of like drug. It just does bad things. So anyways, yeah. So I'm thankful to be able to talk about this stuff. Tell you just a little bit about myself. I have had a lot of hobbies historically, but not very many while I was taking Kratom. So I'm excited for that to come back. In terms of what I'm going to talk with you guys about, a lot of this is going to be like background context for what led me to it, because I think that that's pretty essential to talking about what enabled me to step away from it. So I'll talk about a little bit of my background and then my path to Kratom and then quitting and then recovery. And potential trigger warnings. It's basically all of them. So substance abuse, child abuse, sexual assault, domestic violence, drug overdose, near-death experience, suicide. I mean, I don't know. It's probably most or all of them. But I don't know if I'm going to touch on all of those. Just kind of depends on how we're all feeling. But I just want to put that out there because it could come up. So just tell you a little bit about me. It's kind of hard to talk about my Kratom use without kind of the pattern of my life that led me to kind of have that tendency towards substances and towards excess. So to give you a little bit of background, my biological parents, they had like a super rough childhood and they had a lot of trauma and both had a history of substance abuse and addiction. My dad grew up in the 60s, did a ton of drugs, mostly psychedelics though. And he was in alcohol recovery when I was a baby. I mean, he was like one of those like 30-pack a day dudes up until a little bit after I was born. My mom abused amphetamines when she was like 11 or 12 and like throughout her, I think even elementary school. She's also battled like a lifelong eating disorder. So I think the context of seeing that pattern of excess and restriction and excess like kind of can shape how we perceive substances or the things that we engage with. And so I think that was a big part of it for me. They're both devoted Christians and they really did turn their lives around. Like they created a life for us that like was vastly like improved from the lives that they had. So I'm incredibly thankful to my parents. They definitely had an unhealthy marriage. And when I was 4, my mom left my dad to be with his first cousin, who was also a woman. So fundamentalist evangelical Christians, the wife leaves the husband and is in a lesbian relationship with the husband's cousin. So it was kind of like some Maury Povich stuff, but it was kind of wild. That was like custody, all this stuff, mom hates dad doesn't hate mom, there's lots of shit talk, like just that kind of context. And it can kind of affect kids, but I don't feel like that was like super dramatic. For me, I think the real kind of thing that did kind of set some of the tone for me to like develop a tendency towards addiction was that I had very different contexts that I lived in. At one house, it was like it was like food was used as a punishment, right? Like, so you don't get to eat. Like eating is like a privilege, not a right. So like, we cut that off. And, you did this, well, you don't get to eat this food, or you don't get to eat dinner, or you don't, you know what I mean? And the other house, it was like completely unrestricted. So it was like a madhouse. So two very different places with two very different rules. And so, when you think about that type of pattern with food, well, alcohol, kratom, other things, that's a method of consumption as well. And those kind of extremities, like binging, can kind of lend itself towards that too. So I think that was something that really shaped my use. Things were like really good. I mean, like, even though that shit sounds crazy, like things were good. My mom's partner was like my role model. I was like super connected to her, and they split. My mom did it was like very abrupt. Like they split, and like basically what happened is she was there, and then I went to my dad's and I came back and she was gone. Like her photo had been ripped out of pictures. Like she'd taken our dog, all of the furniture, that she had was gone. And it was like pretty traumatic for me, because she was like my main kind of parent, and at that point, I kind of had lost that stable parental figure, and my mom was going through a lot. So in her defense, but that kind of led us down a path. So, they split. This was this healthy same-sex partnership. My mom remarried a guy a year later who was like literally like a psychopath. And she would go out with him on the weekends and smoke and drink, and he would go out, smoke, drink, and abuse meth. So, that was silver lining for me, is I got to spend time with my mom's previous partner, who had been this role model for me during those times. So that was good. And that wasn't necessarily a bad thing for me at that stage. But he was crazy, man. He was convinced I was like trying to like poison his food and steal from him. And like, he would like bang on my door and like tell me to like kill myself, and like tell me that like nobody loved me and you don't deserve to live. It's like 3 a.m, and I'm like 11 or 12, So it was like kind of crazy. And he would abuse my mom when I was gone. And then, that was kind of a shit show. But so imagine, I'm kind of a weird kid at this point. I had been like classified as gifted in elementary school. So I'm a weird, smart kid. That's usually a recipe for bullying. And shocker. It was. I had undiagnosed ADHD too. So, I was kind of like blurty, interrupt people in class. And so I got bullied, I got beat up. I kind of bottled it up for a while until I couldn't, because I had that stuff going on at home too. So I started like really acting out, like I had anger management issues. Like I was like blowing up at my dad's house now, which was creating conflict. I started having difficulties in school. I graduated middle school because of a fluke. I was credit deficient, but because I'd transferred from a quarter system school to a semester system school, I graduated. They counted it as if they were semester credits, which was convenient. I ended up failing most of my high school classes, and then my dad kicked me out when I was 16 because I just had kind of an anger episode. Didn't hurt anybody, didn't threaten anyone, I broke a door. But I was also like not allowed to enter the house at certain times, and I like needed to get in the house to like use the bathroom. So that was kind of like a situation. I shouldn't have done that, but so anyways, I kind of couch surfed for a couple weeks. My mom was in Mexico. She gets back. I try to commit suicide, but I'm really bad at it, which thank God. Just because I'm in such a dark place with all of this. I don't know where I'm going to live. I don't know where I'm going to stay. Things are going bad. And at this point, like, dude, like I'm like a 3-day-a-week, like Baptist church kid. Like I'm like youth group. I'm doing missions. I'm doing like all this stuff. Like I'm not drinking. I'm not smoking. I'm not doing drugs. I'm not like, I'm angry. So if you like looked at me weird, I might yell at you and be super scary, but like, I'm not like engaging in those habits. So that kind of shit went down, and then I couch surfed for a week until my mom got back. Moved in with stepdad. That kind of escalated shit with him. He got a lot worse. So like lots of cop calls and lock changes, and we started. He was using a lot of the family's money for drugs, and so we started to go through foreclosure on the house. My mom filed for bankruptcy. Which actually was fortuitous for me because it meant I had full financial aid, which is the reason I went to college. because I wasn't going to go to college. I dropped out of high school after my dad kicked me out. So I wasn't planning on going to college. I wasn't planning on finishing high school, but they were like, here's money. And I was like, oh, okay, you'll give me money and I can't get a full-time job right now. Yeah. So I started going to school, which was great. You know, taking courses. I ended up meeting this much older dude who befriended and very much manipulated me. I was like 16 or 17 at this point. I think right after I turned 17, I bought a car with the money I'd earned at my part-time job. And he kind of pressured me into going to a party. And at this point, I'd never drank before. And I was still a minor. So, you know, I don't think I'd ever even been exposed to alcohol once. And you know, my dad is like in alcohol recovery. So like, I think alcohol is like not a good thing. Right. So long story short, go to the party with this dude and he, like dares me to drink a whole fifth, and he's like 30 and I'm like 16, 17. Now I've never drank. I don't know how much to drink. So I drank the whole thing. I drove with him to his friend's house, which was like an hour and a half away, which I'm like, I'm such a stupid kid, you know? I got super messed up. I got passed out. I was blacked out and, he, tried to do some stuff to me while I was unconscious. I woke up and I like tried to push him off of me and I was yelling and then I like couldn't really talk because I was super drunk. And then his friend came in, which stopped it, which is good. But then I kept this cycle of waking up, passing out, waking up, passing out. And every time I would wake up, he'd be like trying to, you know, I'm not going to use the word because I don't want to, but trying to do things to me. And I'm like a heterosexual, like a youth group kid, you know, like, so it's like no bueno, especially no bueno. So I was just like not in a good place. And that was like my first experience with alcohol and with substances like that. So you would really think I would have been like, hell no, like this is a bad idea. But that's kind of the way that our brains work around this stuff. And we don't even really think about it. You know what I mean? Like we can have a terrible experience with a substance and yet still seek that thing out. So anyways, things got a lot actually better in the years following. My mom found these restraining orders against my stepdad and had discovered he basically threatened to kill his ex-wife and her three-year-old daughter. And so she found copies of the restraining orders the court had served him in his safe. And that was like where she cut the line. She was like, all right, fuck this. Like, I'm out of here. And so she like made a plan for us to like leave. And so it was like maybe a year-long process. And it was like basically a way to leave where he could never find us. So it was changing phone numbers. It was changing addresses. It was like all of this stuff. It was a whole thing. So for me, this is really the context of me drinking. And that's why that context and background is important, because all that bad shit happened. But now I'm out of this situation and now I've just transferred to a 4-year college and I'm no longer living with this psychopath. I'm living with my mom because I'm worried about her safety and also for my own benefit because I don't have to pay for rent and all that stuff, or I just have to help her with, you know, all the finances we need around the house. So there was a little bit of like me wanting to kind of save money, but also me wanting to help her. So I lived there. Life is great. I don't have this oppressive person over me. My dad's out of the picture at this point because I'm pissed off at him for what happened. And so life is good. And that's when I start drinking. That's when I really start partying and doing drugs and stuff like that, was that context. And so it's super weird because for a lot of people, I feel like what happens is you hit this really bad place and you're trying to escape. And I think that was true for me. I think I was trying to escape, but I don't think it was from the present. I think I was trying to escape from the past. And I would get just fucking hammered. Like, it was like 3 or 4 nights a week. And at this point, it's like prototypical college binge drinking. So like, I'm not saying you should do that, but like also like a lot of us were doing that. But I associated all of that with like all these amazing positive experiences. So I think that really set the tone for me with my relationship with substances. It was just such a positive thing. My friends, like no matter what I would do, they still loved and accepted me. And so I didn't feel like there was nothing I could do that would like, you know, make them go away. So I felt like I was like appreciated and like safe. And so yeah, getting drunk and having a good time, and was in college, and like had a very positive experience with college, because everything is great in my life right now. You know, I'm like in my early 20s, and I had just professors that were great, and I was like, I want to be a professor, which is like a crazy thought to have happen, because like my GPA sucked. But I ended up like really digging in, just like I pushed away all the past stuff, like don't even think about it, this doesn't exist. And like la 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 la. And I ended up like getting like straight A's, and then I went and I got into graduate school and I did a PhD. And for me, then that's kind of when my drinking really started to like escalate to like the point where it was a problem. I was drinking every night. And I was drinking maybe somewhere between 12, 15 plus drinks every night. And I think for me, it was kind of avoidance of that contrast between like, I'm in this setting with all these other really smart people who are like all super smart and like have had these lives that are very different from my life. And like, I don't belong here. And so that uncomfortability and like feeling that like, it was like, I would rather just avoid that feeling altogether. And like, I can use alcohol to do that. So I did that for a long time. And eventually I discovered it was a problem. And so I quit, and got sober off that, and really locked in at the gym, working out, stuff like that. And then the challenge was COVID happened. And I know we're not even at Kratom yet. It's been like 20 minutes, but I swear it's important. I promise. Yeah, so pandemic happens. Gym is like my life at this point. But now that alcohol's gone, it's my coping strategy for like not dealing with all the uncomfortable feelings inside of me that I've just kind of tried to push away and pretend like don't exist, you know? And so I don't have coping skills now. So I get a dog who is currently trying to ask me to play with him. And he had been kind of messed up and abused and neglected. And I think I was kind of like reparenting myself by getting him. But I did that, and it was super therapeutic for me. And part of that process was getting him out in public to like get him familiar and comfortable with people. And I sure as hell wasn't going to go to a bar to interact with people, but a bar that doesn't sell alcohol might be a great place for that. So I was like, I wonder if that exists. So I go on maps and like, oh, there's a kava bar. Like I had no idea what that was. So I took him out there, interacted with people, made friends. Then it's like, oh, hey, try this, you know? So I tried it, and then it kind of led me down the path to Kratom. I'd taken it in powder form at that place a few times, and it hadn't been like an insane, like, oh shit, this is like my thing. But it was definitely, it definitely hit different. And my thinking was so twisted around Kratom. Like I read a dissertation, which is like you do your doctorate and like you write this thing that's like 5 years of your work or whatever. And I was telling some people this in WhatsApp, but I was like, I literally acknowledge the kava bar in my dissertation, where you like acknowledge your mom and your dad, all this shit. So it's like my thinking, I just did not even consider the possibility that I was like literally poisoning myself. And we boycotted the kava bar when they fired some of my friends, and we went to a coffee shop that had kava. Oh my gosh, yay, that's exciting. Well, it's little blue bottles of kava, which are these little shots that don't say they have Kratom in them, but have a crap ton of Kratom in them. So then I was like off to the races with those things, the blue bottles, which I think a lot of us have taken. Yeah, I don't know if I'm even allowed to say what they're called, but that was a 3 or 4 year process. There was a lot that happened in there. It was moving, it was graduating, I got married, I had job difficulties when I moved. And a lot of that, I think, was a reflection of, certainly using didn't make it easier. Yeah. So it was a fuck feel free. Thank you. So yeah, I was a feel freak, man. I did a lot of powder and extracts and stuff, but I just, feel free was the poison method. That was the way I liked to do it. So I took those I didn't even realize this until I got clean off of them, but I realized I took Kratom for a lot longer than I thought. I was like, I've been on feel freeze for 2 years, but I'd taken powder Kratom for 1.5 years before that. I'd taken some extracts before that. I took extracts while I was taking Feel Free, and like I didn't even think about that until I got off of it. So anyways, now like it's like my life is like in this really good place, and for some reason I'm just like throwing down these substances. And I currently like have a great job. I love the job. I love my wife. I have a happy life, although my dog likes to bug me and when I'm on my computer. We're all done, buddy. Not playtime. Um So that leads me kind of to the process of quitting, right? I was like taking this stuff at work. It's crazy. Like I love my job. I'm so fortunate to be where I am and have the things I have. And I'm like, why the fuck am I like downing these things to make myself feel better? Like, is it really that hard to like process like stuff that's happened to you and like try to go through it? And so I ended up applying for a lot of jobs this summer. And I couldn't quit then because God forbid, you're not able to focus on job applications. And I have to focus. So I need to be taking 5 a day to be able to do that. And it was kind of the process. And then finally November hit. I'd finished with that job market stuff. I landed my dream job. And I just like, you have no excuse at this point. Like you have no freaking excuse. So I quit. I joined the WhatsApp group. I decided that I was just gonna stick with it. It was fucking hard. I had to plan it out. I'd been trying to quit for a year. But it was a process. So, my wife was leaving town and I was like, work slowed. So I took a week off and I literally just detoxed at home. And it was super painful and unpleasant for the 5 days, but I'm glad I did it. And I feel a lot better now, not being on it, obviously, on day 41. I, of course, had to have like my last little binge, but I videotaped that binge and I talked myself through it. I was like, why are you doing this? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, don't ever do this again. And I watch that whenever I have cravings. So that kind of helps. Although the addict part of my brain doesn't care. You know what I mean? It's like, I'll still do it anyways. But, I feel like I've built a lot of, I don't know, I've built things up so that I'm in a good place with my recovery right now. That part was hard. The withdrawal was hard. And people have talked about this a lot. For me, a lot of things came up. Some of those emotions were literally just my brain chemistry being off, but some of those emotions were also stuff resurfacing that I had pushed down for like 10 years. You know what I mean? And like I did therapy. So like it's not like I haven't processed stuff. It's just that I never unlearned my behavior of like seeking external things to like fill that void. You know what I mean? And so that was really kind of the journey for me. I literally could not do this alone. I tried to for a year and a half. And for me, this community, the people in it was like the thing that made it happen, that enabled me to do it, which was, I mean, amazing. And, lots of tears at like really dumb stuff, but also like lots of happy tears at like, the people that I've been able to connect with. And, like just to kind of bring this full circle, I talked a lot about the past and I talked a lot about what led me to use, and I talked a lot about what my quit was like. I really think that our past is kind of like a battered compass, right? Like it's something that's like dented and might be scratched by the lives we live. And I think what I did is I just threw that thing out. I was like, fuck it. Like it's broken. Like I'm not going to deal with this. Like I'll find my own way. So I just kind of like decided to ignore the blemishes on it. And then I think when you do that, you risk wandering aimlessly, getting lost, and potentially even finding something like Kratom, which seems like an oasis, but is really a mirage. You know what I mean? Like it's something that seems like, oh, I found this thing and I've been lost and now I've found the solution, but it's not a solution. And the longer you stay with it and stay at it, the farther you get away from where you need to be and the path that you need to take to move forward. And I think for me, being off of it, I've gained this clarity. Like I had no idea why I was taking this stuff. Like, if you talked to me 41 days ago, I was like, it's my brain chemistry. Like, I had no fucking concept that it could be related to my experience. And so I think for us, I think we have to be honest about what factors drive us to use. And I don't think that that insight is necessarily enough. I don't think it's enough necessarily to lead to you to action to quit. But I do think that knowing that and having that awareness, if you do have that history, is something that can really, really, really empower your recovery. And it has for me. And I think that that's been the difference for me. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without you all and without the WhatsApp and without just the amazing community of people that are here. And I got to tell you, like, as much as it sucks to face stuff that happened, like, I'd much rather live in the real world and move forward than be fucking wandering around and hanging out at some fake oasis, you know what I mean? And like just trying to drown it, you know? So I am so, so, so thankful for all of you. And I am hopeful that I can help at least one person here, maybe who is like on the fence about quitting, or is like, oh, maybe this is why I'm using, or maybe I need to stay off of this stuff. And if I can do that, even though it sucks to talk about some of that stuff, like I hope that that's what can happen from this. So thank you guys for listening. Looks like the chat's lit.
Thank you so much for sharing, Aaron. That was honestly an amazing, touching story. I feel like I have so much to say, and I